Yeah, I got some topics here. I don't necessarily have quotes, but there are some things that came out of Dale Carnegie's book that I was talking to a friend about it for an hour.
You're right.
You're right. No, I just call it my friend because it's it's something I've been altruism. I'm thought about altruism.
To blank. Altruism. Also make sure we're on the same page.
So altruism is seen from an ecological perspective. Look at the definition here.
What's the context that he puts it in?
So this is not his.
Okay, but just in general. Okay.
So people actually only really care about what they get. I do what they. That's what some people think. And so in evolutionary biology, altruism is when an organism behaves in a way that benefits another organism at a cost to itself. And so in the book, he gives the example, you give $100 to charity because you would rather have the feeling of giving the $100 away of keeping it in your pocket as you give because there's a good feeling that comes from it. And so he's, in a way, arguing people don't actually help other people because at the end of the day, about this themselves. And so I'm trying to understand that from a Christian perspective because I think in a lot of ways it's true. A lot of ways it is true. The people you're friends with, you benefit from being your friend in some way or way.
And yes, but does it do them harm?
Right. So that's the question is, hopefully not.
Right.
Right. But when you have a toxic friend, that's so it's just like sucking the life out of you.
Yeah.
But are you actually doing it because you love somebody else? Or there's always when, like the Bible talks about, when you do good things, sometimes good things happen to you. Sometimes they don't necessarily. So like when you're living in the flesh, I wonder if it's when the Bible talks about like even the people who seem to do like good things, there's nothing that's actually righteous before God. Like even the man's best works are filthy rags. I wonder if that sometimes relates to because even like the good things we do, like are actually in some way they are serving ourselves a fit. And so it's just like this spiral of like, when I do something that's good for somebody else, it actually does benefit me. And is that bad? Is that bad? Is it bad to do something good for someone else, even if it benefits me? Because at the end of the day, am I doing this so I benefit somebody else? Or am I doing it because I actually love the person? And so I'm trying to figure out from a biblical perspective, the living the flesh and living in the spirit. Like people who are not Christians do good things. At the end of the day, it benefits themselves. Is there actually a way as a Christian where you're doing the good things for God and you don't even have to think about the benefits that are going to come from it? But at the same time, the Bible talks about, like in the Proverbs, the things that are the wise, they actually do things that are good for others and good for themselves too. And the question is wanted or bad? Because if one thing is bad, we should all be ascetics. But at the end of the day, the ascetics do what they want to do because they'd rather feel pious in depriving themselves of worldly pleasure than in indulging in any sort of pleasure at all. And so at the end of the day, we only really do what we want to do. Or is that how it all works out? It says altruism. Can we actually do something to the benefit of others at a cost to ourselves?
I think it all comes down to it.
Right. But at the end of the day, so what I think from a Christian perspective, we believe that God draws people to himself. That's salvation. And so it's not actually the person's choice. Like ethically, we look at when Ephesians, like God predestined people for himself. So in that sense, it makes sense that God actually wings people to himself and that people don't actually choose. I do think there's free will and predestination work together. But at the end of the day, God draws. It says that God draws in Matthew, right? God draws people to himself. And so when you're now living the Holy Spirit inside of you, when you're a Christian, you're not living the flesh anymore. Your desires should now be to serve God instead of yourself. And so trying to see this rightly, believing God does provide benefit to you. But your motive is instead to glorify God first, instead of trying to glorify God to get something else out of it. And so I think that's where the differentiator is.
Take it back to the first thing you said. Someone gives $100, right? It wasn't to help the charity. It was to get back. Yeah. Right. The motive is the thing that differentiates these two outcomes, right? My motive is to give to charity or to church or something like that. Because I'm called to do that, right? My motive is purely that. But the Bible saying but hypothetically, okay, right? To glorify God is like I'm giving because I glorify God through giving to the church. The other option is I'm going to give to church because yeah, I'm supposed to, but let's be honest, it makes you feel good. And people see me putting $100 in the giving box, and I love that. Right, you have two different options: one selfless, one selfish. And so I think it really comes down to the motive of the person doing the thing. Like you can only know that, right? I think the motive is the defining factor.
But so then is there more, but the question is then, are you more righteous if you do a good thing that costs you something? Right? Because at that point, then asceticism starts to come in play.
I don't know if righteous is the right word, but it has more value.
So, but then the ascetics would say they like to pride themselves of all value or all pleasure because they think that's wrong. Right? So it's very interesting. Is it okay to have a good feeling when you do a side deal? Is that a guy getting busted, do you? Like, is that good in itself? I think so. But you can't be like people at first.
The motive keep
And so I think that not just which we're living in the flesh, living in the spirit is what's first.
yeah, what's prioritized first.
Because there are good people, right, that are not Christian, that do good things. They give to charity. They give to where they help, they do the good Samaritans type of stuff. But are we actually able to do something unselfish if we're not saved? And even saved people, do we still fall in the trap and doing it because doing righteousness actually a lot of times brings benefit? And that's the real deep question of why am I doing what I'm doing? And then are we recording this? Oh, that's all long. Oh, should we go or what?
I think we're going.
I think we can go, and I think you can tie what you're talking about too into the quote I just told Aaron. It's like God is in the business of outcomes. We are in the business of obedience. A quote by Phil, how am I say the advisor? And it's just like, is what you're doing purely for the outcome, or is it in obedience in what you're doing? So are you detached from what the outcome is, but you're obedient, you're working towards something, and then the outcome just becomes because of what you're doing. So it's not necessarily you're striving towards an outcome, it's just obedience in the thing you're doing. You can have strategy, you could work towards a goal, but that's not like your motivation is just being obedient to what you're doing. And then God would provide whatever outcome it might be.
Our motivation is attached to our outcome. We're outsourcing our body. And I think I 100% bought into that trap.
Wait, say that again.
Like if we associate ourselves with not obedience and with the outcome, we associate ourselves.
So if your motivation is tied to your outcome,
Is that you're outsourcing your value to that, outsourcing your value to the outcome. Yeah, right. Because if you don't have gloves, you guys found our gloves, save gloves in a year, go bankrupt. Right. If you're purely find the value in your sales numbers and in just gloves, and that goes to crap, you're like, man, who am I? Like, this sucks. Like I put all that time in and now I'm worth nothing. You just outsourced your value, right? Because you're going towards that objective. And so, as Will is saying, like, if we're just actual obedience, if that's our motivation, there's no way we can outsource our value to earthly things, the desires of the flesh. So bring it back, full circle.
No, that's spirit. I think that's a super important point. It's the mindset, right? And I heard a quote. I'm going to butcher it completely, but I was thinking about, so you were talking about where are we finding our value? Why are we doing what we do? And I was a little bit I felt a little bit overwhelmed with all the things that I want to do. And we're young guys. We're trying to figure out what that means, right? We're waiting through life to go, having these conversations, trying to figure out what is the right way to go, how to create a life. And not gonna lie, I was getting kind of stressed out. I was like, I don't have enough time to do all this perfect. And because that's sort of how I grew up, was I wanted to make sure I knew everything right. And there was a quote, and I honestly can't remember where I found the film or where it was from, but it talked about stress, and stress is the pressure that you put on yourself. You could have one person in the same exact scenario as you, but if the mindset's different, then they're not actually going to be, they can be completely, at ease. And so the mindset of and the mindset behind what you're doing and why you're doing, if you believe that everything you do and all the success that you have is going to be completely because of your work that you put into it, you're outsourcing your value to yourself and your workspace of righteousness, your workspace success. If you believe God is actually the author of all of this, and that you're just supposed to be obedient, like you said, and do the things that we set before you to do, then there actually shouldn't be that much stress if you're obedient. And so if Clubs goes bankrupt, and I did what I was supposed to do, then ultimately it's part of God's plan. And it's a really easy thing to say, but a really hard thing to actually do that. And so I've been trying to fight the earthly, the fleshly thing to be like, I have to bring this together. I have to do all this. And instead you put God's hands. And you still do work. You still stay up late and get the stuff that you get done. But the outcome, ultimately, nothing would stop the will of God.
What's hard when you're like, I think we've all got this, right? You're still on campus. I'm still on campus. You're off. When you were here, you're like, you're the gloves guy. You're the hat guy. You're the marketing guy. Like you people associate you with your achievements, right? I just met someone. He's like, oh, you do the ultra marathons. I was like, ah. So like right out the gate, I'm associated with those achievements, and I think it's counter to what you're saying, because it's like you're like, I'm trying to say, yeah, I've done these things, right? You've done these things, but I'm not defined by those things. But then you have somebody on the other side where like, you're defined by those things because they're calling you like, you're the founder, you're the blank. And it's hard because you're constantly being bombarded with, look at all you've done. But it's like, yeah, but there's some motives behind it that you don't see. And I don't necessarily want to be defined by that outcome. Does that make sense? But
no, it's easy to get wrapped up in the perception that you want other people to see it you. Yeah. And so the perception is you're the hat guy. And then, kind of tickles the ego. We bet a little bit. You're that ultra marathon hat guy. And you're like, yeah, I do ultra marathons, and I have my running hat. And the question is, where does that take you? What path does that take you down? Because that's where you start getting into, it goes back to the altruism question. When it comes to your businesses, your personal life, what are you actually doing it for? Like, are you being kind to people? Are you doing your business? Are you taking time to invest in this venture because you want to eventually be on top? I think all of us, a little bit deep inside, we have the ego that's sort of pulling on our desires to want to be a person. But it goes back to, why are we doing what we're doing? But I think we take a simple step. Every step that we take, simply in obedience to Christ, then that helps to have us actually do things for His glory, so of our own. And that's so easy to say, so hard to do. But that's where it comes the altruism question, the perception question, your motivation, the outsourcing thing. That's where I think it kind of comes together is the why. And so if we keep our value of ourselves in results, then we're saying to God that we are the one to actually make things succeed or fail. And that's the challenge, right?
So yeah, so I wanna reframe this then. If you're talking about like why you're doing something, so let's talk about a little bit what you guys are doing. I really want to talk about, like, we had an amazing discussion 2 weeks ago at this point, whenever that weekend was, talking about our plans, what we have going on. I really want to dive in to you, Aaron, just with ultralight, specifically with the hat that you have, the newest one out. It's kind of your vision that you have coming up for the next few months with that.
Yeah, I think it's hard, right? I'm trying to find that. I'm trying to try to orient myself. Because a lot of times, and I think we're all guilty, but I don't think guilty is the right word. Check for this box where we're passionate in the same way. I said that, and rightfully so. Because the thing that draws people back is like, I don't know the details, so I got to figure out all the details. I got to have the right timing and all that, right? That's the thing that it runs into. And so I think it's props to people who just send it, not knowing exactly what they're getting yourself into. And I think all of us are in that time where we're just still trying to figure that out. Like, I had the inventory, I realized I watched the half tights that are denote. And I'm constantly just trying to figure out, okay, how do I want to frame this? How do I want this to for? Like, you could be the Mikey Wiltshire. Sick. You could have an amazing goal, and rightfully so. But now you have to reverse engineer that. And you have to, there's so many steps that you can do to get yourself to that point to where you overstimulate yourself, or you stimulate yourself to be like, I don't know what to do. It's the woman in the red dress. Yeah. Yeah, I'm talking about this woman's on. Oh, I love this. You know the frame of Formosi? So the Matrix, right? You have the what's it, Neo, right? He's currently in this new universe or whatever, and he's walking around and he's even trained over. And the first who's training him is they're walking through his crowded people, and he's trying to keep his eye out for somebody. And so this woman, red dress, and this old super dark setting where there's a woman that's red dress. Everything's black and gray. Yeah, make his way through. Yep, and this catches his eye. That's better. And they stop. I'm not sure if I'll get into the idea to get him around the movie. But he turns right back around when he looks away, and it's somebody pointing a gun at his face. And it was the woman in a red dress. And I think that's a great analogy. And I'm not, this isn't my analogy, this is I was from the analogy. But it's like you have all these different women in the red dress that are constantly pulling you away from your core dirt. It's like, I have a product business. I've really been tempted to start a service-based business. Like, you got to give it enough in the product field to be able to justify the service business. So there's all these different things that can be pulling at you. And even just if I wanted to focus on a client-based business, all right, what are the different ways I can do this? I can outsource different things, but I can actually do that. I just don't want to spend the time doing that. And so there's all these different ways to try and distract yourself to justify your stagnation. And Chris Williamson just talks about output's the only thing that matters. Like, you can pull from wires, you can go to these huge seminars, you can get coaching from the best people in the world. But if you don't change what you're doing in your business and take what you learn from those things and apply it to your business, that means nothing. Your output does not change. And so you could put all the sweat, blood, and tears behind your business, but if nothing changes in it, then what's the point of the sweat, blood, and tears? And I think that's really a challenge, is we're always in this hustle and grind culture. Right. And we're young, and we have the time, and we have the energy. But at the same time, it has to be efficient, it has to be effective. This is a metaphor that doesn't answer your question, but I'm still trying to figure that out. Yeah, hot take before we move on. It's so common, and I fall to this. So I did track and cross country, and this goes with business too. But you almost get sort of this feeling of entitlement if you work harder than everybody else. So in running, it doesn't matter how many miles you train unless you race well. And so myself included, I know guys who are
They just like go so hard in the training. Like they just like they train so hard, which is great. But when it's race day, sometimes they don't get sleep the night before. They don't freshen up the legs in time, and they race bad. And then in my mind, the first thing is like, I trained harder than everybody else, so I deserve to be faster. And I think it's the same thing for business. Like you can stay up all night and get nothing meaningful done. You can stay up all night searching for these different opportunities and things that pique your interest, and you can work on all these side things. But if you don't actually execute, it doesn't matter. The company I worked for, I had just graduated. As you guys know, I stick around here a little bit though. But one of the things that we learned a lot in our company is that you can have ideal strategic partners. You can have a great idea, but if you don't execute on it, it means nothing at all. If you have a subpar or average idea with the right execution, you could have some success. And that is really shaped the way I now view things. You know, you've seen like, I've heard salespeople. Some salespeople work 10 hours a day and they're barely making it. Some work 2, 3, 4 hours and they're making tripling on than what other people are making. That's the case of somebody that I met that used to be in the industry. It doesn't matter how long you work. It doesn't matter if you get 2 hours of sleep a night if nothing happens. And so that's something that is really, because we like to talk about how long we stayed up. We like to talk about how I got 2 hours of sleep last night, did it, drank 5 espressos, and because it kind of gives us a hit. It tickles the ego, like you said, that tickles the ego. Yeah, tickles. That's a strange phrase. I've been being what you use. I don't know where that came from, but tickles the ego, man. Boost the ego. Yeah.
And it's like James Clear talks about that a lot, but Atomic Habits, where the first minute of action is worth more than a year of perfect planner. And that could be applied to where Hermesi says,
Specs.
it doesn't matter how efficient you were, it matters how effective you were. So you could be super efficient at something, but if the thing you do is absolutely pointless, then it doesn't matter because you just worked blindlessly on something that doesn't apply to what you need. If you need to do something, what makes you effective is just doing that. So not doing the easiest thing, not doing something like, oh, this is cool, we could do this, like if we have a marketing game plan, we could focus. Like he even talked about it recently in that podcast. Like he could do all this color grading to make his stuff look cinematic, really cool. And it's pretty easy to just go in the color grading, put a LUT on or some effects and make it work. But the big thing is he's like, what would bring the most ROI on my actions? And that's make the hook better, make the content better, make the words better. More people care about that than the color grade. So that's where he's going to focus his time. That's where he's going to put his stuff.
Going back to what you said about like doing the thing, right? A minute worth of planning is better than a year worth, or a minute worth of actually doing is better than a year worth of planning. And Chris says this quote, it's a little long, but I think it's worth it. He says, here's a list of things that are not doing the thing. Preparing to do the thing isn't doing the thing. Scheduling time to do the thing isn't doing the thing. Making a to-do list for the thing isn't doing the thing.
That kills, man.
Telling people you're going to do the thing isn't doing the thing. Messaging friends who may or may not be doing the thing isn't doing the thing. Writing a banger tweet about how you're going to do the thing isn't doing the thing. Hating on yourself for not doing the thing isn't doing the thing. Hating on her people who have done the thing isn't doing the thing. And he just, that's half the quote. I could keep going. And it's exactly what you said. Right? We can have all these things set in place. People are like, I talked to somebody, and it was it's the same person I talked to the other day about, look at your ultra marathon back. I was like, dude, you could do ultra marathon. He's on a track. He's like, man, I don't have the time on the college. And I just met the guy, so I wasn't going to say something like this. I'm like, yeah, exactly. You're at college. You have the time. You think when you graduate, ideally either Christian school, like some people here are trying to get their MIS, their MRS degree, right? You think when you're married, that's right. Okay. You think when you're married, you have kids, like you're gonna have more time on your hands? No. If you're gonna do it, you're gonna do it now. Or else you're never gonna do it.
And that's very little risk right now.
Exactly. If you fail, dude, I know this isn't applicable to everybody, and we're blessed in this regard. I had a couch to go sleep on at my parents' house. I made friends that would help me out my cash. Like there's literally no risk other than the risk of having our ego kind of deep down a little bit.
That's even then you're a student, and people are like, "You're a student, you're learning, it's fine." But
Yeah, there's literally no excuse right now because there is no shame or anything like that. Like you're in the environment that encourages risk and doesn't absolutely pummel you if you lose on the risk that you take. It's the same idea of why people go to Silicon Valley or go to San Francisco, because the atmosphere and the culture in those places is take risks. Like Salt Lake City right now, the name that a lot of people are calling it is the Silicon Slopes, where Google, Adobe, Apple, all these big companies, their second location, their second headquarters is in Salt Lake City. And so it's that same culture of like startup culture, entrepreneurship, technology, take as many risks as you can and go for it. And that's the culture. And so that having the culture as well helps with being effective. It's like there's people around you, it's like, man, they're doing great things. Well, I gotta need to do something as well. And so then you start striving together because you have that group of people around you with that same mentality.
well, there's needed risk and there's needless risk too. Or just to clarify, and we don't have to just take risks because that also tickles the ego or boosts the ego as well, right? So say, oh man, like you did that, but like it's execution. It doesn't matter. Also, to that Chris Williams' quote, doesn't matter if you take risks if the risks aren't worth it either, because you only have so much financial and time one way to get the plane off the ground. And so the risks, I would say, the risks have to be calculated, but a big opportunity where there has to be some sort of risk. If it's your time, if it's your money, if it's your where you gotta live, you're right living in a place where it has that environment. So that's super solid.
There's this frame. I love the aspect of risk that we're talking about, but there's another frame where it's pain is like the key is a catalyst for exponential growth. So like we're at college. You say we're just doing our classes. That's it, right? We're going day in, day out, going to classes, hang out with friends. Right? You're broken, doing your wrong, ideally. If you're in our classes, no right. It's a linear growth, right? But the pain associated with building a business and the ups and downs, or not just business, but pain in itself, at this quote, it's called pain is currency, right? You can spend it wherever you want. But if you spend it in the right ways, you can grow exponentially, which means your 1 unit of output now gets you 5 units. Your 1 unit of input now gets you 5 units of output. It's exponential growth. And I think pain is a huge indicator for that. And I think that's one of the reasons why I love doing these endurance-based things is because, not because of the race itself, but it's the things that I have to do to start the race. Like the 8 months of training to step on that start line is I think one of the main reasons why I do ultra marathons. It's because all that crap I had to do for all the running through the snow in the morning where everybody's sleeping. I'm like, this sucks, right? Like there's pain induces that level of growth and it gets you outside the comfort zone. And I love that frame. And we could talk forever about pain and all that stuff, but that's something I just wanted to touch on there.
Right. It's there's going to be times of being uncomfortable in the execution. Yeah. And I think it goes back to your why. Because if your why is not strong enough, you're not going to be willing to do the thing. That's so true. And so understanding why you're doing something is huge. And it's something I was asking myself, because entrepreneurship is not easy. I mean, that's pretty obvious, I think, to a lot of people. You can make it harder on yourself for no reason, but it's going to be a period of challenging, taking initiative, jumping over the hurdles, sometimes tripping on them, failing. You're going to have to be okay with failing at some point. You're taking risks. Entrepreneurship requires pain, but you have to have the why. And so that's why I think it's important for entrepreneurs, even whatever you're doing, if you're getting married, if you're going to school, if you're going to be running a marathon, one of the questions at my job that we ask people is, what is your why? Why are you doing this? Why are you looking to start a business? If they don't have a good why, it's not somebody we'll work with. Because if it's just for money, if you just want to do it for money, when things get tough, we start losing money. If there's a period where you're investing a lot and you're losing money, what happens when it gets too hard and you already got too much? No, you think go last.
I didn't know we asked that question. That's awesome, Abhijay.
But it's I hope I'm okay to show that. But it is a question that we ask. Why are you doing this? Why are you looking to start a business? And so there's a question, I think, even if you're not, if someone's watching this, but not an entrepreneur, everything that you do for a reason. Everything. We do everything that we do for a reason. It's something that I was reading Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends, Lose People. It's a very secular book, but there are some deep pieces of wisdom there. People do things. It goes back to altruism, the altruism question. Are you doing it for God? Are you doing it for yourself? Are you doing it for others? What is the reason you're doing it? Entrepreneurship, the reason I love entrepreneurship is because it's the opportunity to provide immense value to others. You're solving a problem if you're doing it right. It's the opportunity to provide value for the people you care about, your family, your community. It's an opportunity for God to use it as his vessel for his glory and influence others. And so when entrepreneurship, you had to have that why. I think for me, what has to help me get through the challenges and the pain to keep facing, I think that's hard every day, is the why of what I'm doing, if I give it to God, he's going to use it for his glory, whether it fails or succeeds. And so that's the why question. Certainly, what do you guys think? I mean, what is your, I suppose, I guess we could get into the why of this podcast, because this is episode number 1. Why are we making this podcast?
Yeah, I think so. Why would we want to make this podcast? And one of the main things I've wanted to do and thought about kind of ties to one of my bigger fears, which is the fear of regret. The fear of looking back and it's like, geez, there was that time that I could have done so much stuff. There was that opportunity and I didn't go for it. And one of the biggest things I always think about over and over again is of not documenting. Is having something to look back on. One, like whether it's journaling, which I am a terrible journaler. I've tried so many times to go into my book and journal, just don't end up doing it. I've always loved content creation and video and vlogging, like Case Neistat and all of that. And now seeing these newer people come up, Chris Williamson, Daniel Dalen, all of that, just documenting the process so then you can look back and you might as well use that to influence others. There's always the idea of like what were internships and apprenticeships back in the day. It was, you didn't get paid squat. You got food, water, you lived with them, and then you watched what they did and did what they did. And so now you can give that to people for free and they can absorb it whenever you want. You just have to put the effort there. And you will get a reward from it generally, whether it's monetary, like with ad revenue or sponsorships, or it's some of those fun things. But also the fact just like you could just build a community around people following your journey and learning from what you're going through. And so whether it's this podcast, my own stuff, I just want to document the journey, the lessons, the struggles, and the highs, everything in between for other people to see, other people to get from.
So, and you're the one who named this podcast, Create a Light. Why that in particular? Why? I mean, we all know we wanted to do this, but you had the name. Why is that sort of the name that you chose? It could have been a lot of different things, but specifically, you want to influence others, but how? What does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, it came a little bit from a mission, vision, value statement that I always go through whenever I'm going through ideas, because it really flushes out what I'm thinking. And Create a Light came from the mission of, I want to inspire others to create a light in the world through what they're doing. The bottom line is you are doing something that is inspiring to others, that they will find interesting, that they're like, oh, that's what I want to do, and I'm following you. But then they'll also see the struggles that you're going through, and they'll be like, okay, I'm not alone in the struggles that I'm in.
So like you're saying, like everybody has influence. It's like everybody, I mean, regardless of what your expertise is, you do have that influence in your steer. Is that what you mean? Like people are going to look to you for the expertise. It could be in relationships. I'm thinking like with your father, your mother, your family member, you're in a community person, you're at work. It seems to be that we all have a level of affairs. And with my Christian perspective, that's where I come from is what do we do with that? You know, like, what do we do with that influence? And that I think that kind of ties into what we're saying is how do other people that we come in contact with, how do they get the bug? How do they get this contagious desire to want to create a light for others? That's Matthew. I'm going to pour out here.
Yeah. And I think it's stewardship too. It's like you've been given this journey, ability, and desire, passion, whatever it is, to do something. And it is even a part of whether it's the Great Commission or some of the principles talked about in the Bible, to not cover your light, but to shine it. We have the ability now to expand our influence and to create a light in the world, to shine a light on why we do things. And that can question the people, like, why do they do this thing? Why do they have this crazy light that I'm attracted to? And then so it inspires them. Like, you're creating this light, and it inspires people to ask the question of why do you create that light? And it's all just directional energy of like, I'm doing this thing, I'm creating this light, I'm putting that out there, and maybe some people will respond to then my final why. I do this for the glory of Jesus Christ, because he's my Lord and Savior.
Yeah, Matthew 5:16 says, in the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. And I think there's a couple ways to look at shining your light. It's like what you said, like it gets back to our why. When people ask us why we do what we do, we could share our faith. But in the same way, it's like, I think people need to be encouraged. Like when there was somebody important to me about a year ago. He wrote me a note. He said, I believe in you. I believe you're going to do great things. And I have that note to this day. And that has been an inspiration to me, because someone believes that I can shine my light. You'll create a light. I mean, the light of God, right? The light of Jesus Christ. But we are his vessels. I think having some people out there that can show that they believe in other people to make an influence, make an impact, that God can use you, I think that's huge. I think that's, for me, it's one of the reasons why I'm so excited about what we're going to do here with this podcast, because look, we're just a bunch of guys. We're just a bunch of dudes. Being dudes, drinking mush. I don't.
This is Cafe Eutonic. Shout out. We'll take a sponsor. It's not mushroom. Well, no, it's not. Cognitive enhancer.
I make fun of it. I know that's the time for his drinks. I want to take that a step for you. Yeah. Go ahead. To documenting,
right? I think the documenting why we love, like we cliff on Casey Neistat, or Roman Atwood, or like more recently, people like Daniel, I can now remember. But I think that them documenting those things allows us and people like us to feel not alone. Like we see other people struggle. We see people that are building a business and we crap, I have 0 sales. Or crap, like, dude, I just stayed up all night and literally I probably got a few things done. Like we can relate to them. Like we're not alone in this journey. And I think a big thing is like, I love Nick Bear. I especially love the beginning of his journey. I've been listening to it's like a multiple part series about how he built performance nutrition. Like he's like, yeah, dude, I didn't know what I was doing. I started 2 YouTube channels, and the first video I posted, people like giving me crap out the gate. So I deleted them, but and then he's like, no, I'm gonna spend the $500 that I have on my bank account, buy another camera. Now, I don't get a crapper. And that's the catalyst of what starting grow business. And so I'm just like reverse engineering currently and trying to build a business, seeing other businesses do it. Like, dude, him documenting that and having that, I'm like, dude, I don't feel alone in world curve yet. And I think that's something that a huge impact that we can have is if we document this process like we're doing now or with our own personal brands, people could see like if we're real with what we communicate, what we do. Like people are like, no, they're legit and they're struggling and I'm struggling. Okay, let's see what they did and they try not to do this. And I think that's huge. I think that's a huge opportunity that we have. And especially if we can orient it towards Christ to be like, yeah, we're trying to do great things here to ultimately, yeah, we're in this how we do this.
Absolutely. I think there's, to your point about seeing the story, that success where people have gone through. I think there's a perception gap where we put these people on the pedestals who have, they achieved amazing things. I mean, it's so much worldly success. And we're like, how in the world, like, what's the path to actually be excellent? And they just seem so far above that it's so hard to imagine that we could do something like that. And we could actually work the steps to take. What does it take? Seeing the guy, I always forget his name, Daniel Balin, is that right? Seeing his, he's just recording himself like on the computer, just typing away, like going at it. And it's like this guy, among many other people, they started off just like us. But they had some sort of they had a belief in themselves that was something that they were capable with they were capable of achieving. And they did. And it's like, even they'll say, we're normal people who have just, God's blessed us. He's blessed what we're doing. Now I don't know if Dana didn't say that, but they're normal people that have been blessed, but are doing the work that is, it's not so far away that we can't do something like that. And one of the things I haven't read Atomic Habits by James Clear. I want to, but the title enough to me, I think it tells a lot about what he's talking about. Is like, just do the work. Go back to what Chris Way was in the quote that he's mentioned. Just do the real things every day. I've learned it through running. I learned it through my experience in entrepreneurship, although I wouldn't say I've achieved any echelon of some sort of piece of success. There's still a lot of failures along the way. But the failures and lessons wouldn't have happened unless the first steps were taken and steps taken consistently. And that's a goal I'm shooting for, because I believe that is the road path to success. Now, I want to make a distinction, and I have it written down here on my book. There's a difference, I think, between excellence and the rat race. The rat race meaning, I want your guys' take on this, because you've heard the rat race, right? So the rat, and this goes back to a different sort of analogy, but I'm going to tie it together. I'm going to do the weave on Donald Trump. We was also, I can bring this full circle. I'm working on the weave.
Yeah, just keep wrong.
This is raw. So the rat, they're running toward the cheese, but also away from the cat. It's George Peterson stat. Is that George Peterson? Yes, I heard from Sower. Right, it's true. And they're running away from something, running towards something. And the analogy goes with a bunch of rats trying to get to the top. And at the end, it doesn't matter because you're just a rat, right? Like your king rat. Like, what matters? Like, you're gonna die. Like, I don't know my great granddad's name. He's like, but at the end of in 100 years, no one's planning we ever existed. Very few people, maybe a couple. Like, our time here is short, and so it's what is excellence in God's perspective. What is excellence? That's not the rat race of just winning for yourself. And that's the struggle, because I'm like, oh man, I really want to make this amount of money so I could have this amount of stuff for my family so I can set them up well. And it's like, you get stuck in the fake why. The fake why of your personal gain, but you want to have no earthly security. That's something I've personally struggled with. But what do you think about the rat race? You guys heard that analogy?
Yeah, I've heard of it, and I think it's about reframing your mind of what you're doing. Is it truly just first to the top is the winner? Is it the most amount of people you impact determines whether you're successful? Is it how much money do you make determines whether you're successful? Or is it in what you're doing, you are obedience, you are Christ honoring, you are shining a light, and you're just doing the thing that you have right in front of you. Not worrying about like, oh, will this impact all these people that I want to impact? Or will this do exactly what I'm supposed to be doing? Just on whatever it is.
They go back to the why there. We said, I love what you said. It is a fake why, right? And if our goal is to make $10,000 more, that's our why. What is business? $10,000 more. Okay, boom, hit it. My why has now changed. Great. I want to hit $20,000. Cool, hit. My why is not changed yet again. Right? These whys are temporary to my current ideal outcome. And I think that if you have like I said, bring it full circle. Like you're in obedience, your why is not $10,000 a month or $20,000 a month. Your why doesn't change. Your why is the exact same as obedience. And I think everything that we do, keeping our why doesn't change, allows us to orient ourselves for something greater, so much greater to ourselves. I love that what you said, our fake why. There's a lot of fake whys out there.
Have you ever thought about how billionaires still want one million?
Dude, I love this thing. Yes, 100%. Here, give me a second. Listen to this. Chris Williamson, yeah. He said on his podcast, I don't know what he said. The best measure of wealth is what you have minus what you are. By this measure, some billionaires are born. Dude, that's so good. That's so good. Do you know the Chinese proverb about the man, the fisherman?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it could be this proverb about fishing. But you probably so the proverb goes like this. So you have a fisherman, right? He goes out and he catches 3 fish, right? He comes back. He ends at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. He sells 1 fish to the market, covers his cost for the day. Has 2 fish, brings home, covers a meal for the night for his fish. The rest of the night, he sits around a campfire, singing songs with his buddy to have a beer. Next day, he goes to the dogs to go out fishing again. And he sees this man dressed up in a nice suit. And the man talks to him and says, "So you going out fishing?" He's like, "Yeah, sure am." And he says, "Well, tell you what, let's make a business out of this. Let's have you not stop at 12 o'clock, but go till 6 p.m. and get a few extra fish, and then we'll sell the rest to the people in the marketplace. And then you can bring 2 fish under a family. And then slowly we'll have enough capital to hire another boat, and then we'll have 2 boats getting fish." And the guy's like, well, why would I do that? And he says, well, once you do that, you can go back with your buddies, have a beer around the fire, and sing some songs. And he's like, well, I'm already doing that. So why would I go through all that effort to already have them that I have currently friends? I may have butchered that thing, but I think that it puts in perspective. Like, I'm gonna put all this work in here to then have the exact same thing that I have here that I have here, and that could be right. And I think that's a great perspective, and how billionaires are broke.
Yeah, just grinding for some idea, something, whether it's retirement in the future, whether it's like, oh, I made the level of money where I can just travel whenever I want, do whatever I want, or is it where you are now? You already have what you want. You just aren't content with what you have.
I told you I was reading Dale Carnegie's book. Again, had to have a Christian worldview when reading it. But one of the things he says early on is that he talks about some psychology. It was like 8 things that people like need to feel important. It's like intimacy or need to feel like content. I mean, I don't read all of this, but he talks about intimacy, their family, friends, food, shelter, water, whatever it was. And the 8th one he said was the feeling of being important. And it goes back to the ego. But he says that one of the things that people starve for and not a lot of people get is the feeling of value, the feeling of importance. And then so that's where he sorts this the angle as you're trying to influence people or make friends, like compliment, not flattery, because when you're not trying to manipulate people, but understanding that people actually deep down have a desire to want to feel value and own, then that is actually a huge key in understanding how to deal with people. And I think it ties into the fisherman. I mean, the fisherman probably feels important when he's with his friends and the people he cares about the most. It's the money is not really a huge deal to end business. And that way, taken away from the things that make him feel happy. I think when it comes to the billionaires, these people, they feel important because they can make more money. It's probably not the money itself to actually raise them happy. I heard this, I wish I remember exactly where it's from, but talks about men who divorce their wives for no reason. This guy interviewed this guy. He'd been married for like 30 years, and they had a good marriage. And he divorced his wife and ran off with some young chick. And the reason the guy said that he did that is because he's just like a superstar, C-level exec or something. And at work, everyone treats him like he's like God, like he's like super important. Or when he gets home, he's like a regular person. He doesn't feel important. And so he ran off with this chick because she made him feel actually that he was more valuable. And it's a very interesting psychological concept. And I think it's deeply ingrained because we do want to feel valuable. And Dale makes the argument, and that really is what drives a lot of what we do. But it's also is a way to do it, and that's not done in either way, to actually, right, as Christian, you want to be the image of God. I think the way you can do this in a way that's beneficial to others is to acknowledge that and treat people well. Treat people like you have a genuine interest in them, because they're people made in God's image. But at the same time, there are benefits that come from there, because people will be attracted to people that actually care for. And so yes, I know I'm going on here, but it ties back to the fisherman story because he feels important when he's around people who runs the traditional wars. And so when it goes back to the why, we have to be careful that our feeling of importance is actually what drives us. Because money, I think, is sort of, you have to wonder like why people get so evil and twisted when they're in politics and in places of power. Like they had everything they could want. They had the yachts, they had the women, they had the, everything. And yet they still find a way to try to make more money. I don't think it's because they want to win that. I think there's something deeper at the end of the day that's driving.
It's the reverse prisma thing I talked about. All my stuff is Chris.
Well, I love the guy. Dude, little Mosey and little Chris and little Willie.
But he talks about reverse charisma. I mean, he said that he realized that a lot of times whenever he gets out of a podcast, that if he has made his guest feel more important than him in that situation, that he's got an A+ on the podcast. And he was just talking about how, like, if you can make the person you're talking to in the moment feel super important, not to boost their ego or to have some form of manipulative way to get what you want, just be like, no, I'm going to ask him more questions. And if he finds out that if he knows just where I live in my name, and that's it, that he gets out of the conversation for me, great. And he can walk away and be like, I love that guy. Because I got to tell him about stuff I never get to tell anybody. And so Chris coined it as reverse charisma. And like you were saying, like everybody is important, right? Because they're in the image of God. And I think one of the applications is drawing those questions out that people don't know just talk on.
Yeah, people want to be listened to. That's one of the best forms of selling in general, just listening to all the things that are going on. Even some of there was the one guy that we talked about. We talked with him at the Impact Conference, Jeff Joyner, and he talked about one of his sales. He just kept trying and get the sale. It was like many years he'd been trying to get the sale. It didn't work. He's like, I gotta try something else. I keep selling this person, but I'm not making a sale. So he just asked the person, what do you need? What can I do for you? And they said something like, hey, our morale is terrible. We don't know how to raise it. He's like, what if I just go and give a big speech, a big seminar about like why we do what we do? And to sell to this person, he went to them, went and did that speech, boosted the morale of the entire, I think it was a school that they were selling to. It was a cafeteria organization. And then he finalized his sale for more than he even was originally going to.
I think that's like a genuine interest in the people that he was like,
genuine interest in what she wanted. He was like, I can do that for you. And she felt appreciated and made the sale immediately.
It's like the provide value first. And when you're selling, we're all salespeople in a way. We're all selling ourselves in like whether it's a friendship currency or whether it's, I've been getting it's kind of hard to talk about like that, but you do sell yourself in the way to your friends, and you sell yourself in a way to people to get mentored in a way. You do sell yourself when you're trying to actually sell a product or a business. And there's always there's a right and wrong perspective way to look at it. But I think the right way is you have to go in seeking to serve the people and maybe stepping outside the box, stepping outside what we normally do to actually serve. You can you come in with the value. Let's talk about this with the mentor, the value expectation that you're going to provide value to them before you ask anything from them. That is what's going to set you apart from other people in the sales industry. And so that's something that really thing that Jeff nailed on the head. And I just finished his book. It was actually really solid. But he's talking about give people value first without even expecting anything in return. Should we take a second to fix whatever came?
Yeah, that camera just died, but we also just hit the hour mark.
You can.
So
We're at P.
So yeah, I think we can take a cut on this one here. So thank you guys for listening. If you made it this far, my camera, it'll roll it. My camera's off anyway right now. So, but you guys still have your angles. But yeah, thank you guys for hopping on. Y'all agree is a like episode 1 on. Let me go here. We'll get a little thumbnail picture here.
Look, I'm actually a bungee at the 8 buzzer. Yeah. Look, we're just a bunch of dudes.
We're not here trying to just tell you how to live life. Honestly, these are conversations that we have on a daily basis. Not daily, but every time that we come together, we end up talking about this random stuff because, look, we're just trying to figure life out. We hope that you found some value in this. And honestly, we want to hear what you think. Like, let us know. What do you want to hear about? What did you like? What did you not like? And, if you say something you don't like, it may not change what we do. But we do want to serve you in a way, right? So
we're just dudes being dudes, trying to figure out life like everybody else. So
yeah, real light. Hey, go out there, create, run a line or whatever you're doing. Continue to keep creating, create to inspire others. Whatever niche you're in, create the light. Create to inspire. We're out.